got stress conditioned by tradition, position, and religion. Do we listen? We're frozen in fiction, so division, not the mission. Trump, Biden, gaps widen, transition, blurred vision, a soul collision. Got a mind.
And the stress divides me.
Stress divides me.
Mind the gap, hey.
Mind the gap, hey.
So why don't you help me?
Why don't you join me?
Welcome
Why
to
don't
Minding
you
the Gap,
help
another
me?
episode right before the holidays in 2020. We're about to wrap up a pretty crazy year. I'm joined as usual by Dr. Barnhart, David Barnhart. Welcome to a nice Friday, cool morning.
Yes, Friday morning. It was a bit chilly out there. Had frost on my windshield. And thank goodness for the little spray stuff that, you can de-ice your windshield and then drive.
That's pretty fancy. That's pretty fancy. I'm still in the form of scraping.
Yeah, I've done that, but man, that chemistry is so much faster. It's amazing.
Well, this morning we're going to talk a little bit about homework. Homework as part of change and the counseling that we do, and the importance of it, and why we ask people to do homework, and even those that are listening that are just trying to get some tips to be able to change anything. You got to work on it. You got to be conscious of it. You have to be aware of it. You have to have some goals and steps to it. It's difficult. It's difficult to change. So talk a little bit about what you would, somebody came in for the first time, what would you want them to start with in terms of homework?
Yes. So, and why do we do homework, and why do we monitor things? And people that live in Huntsville really know this, particularly if they're connected with any of the scientific endeavors or government programs or high-tech business. You can't make progress if you don't measure things. You got to monitor what you do, or you cannot change behavior. So when people first come in, they usually are here because they have some kind of stress. They don't wake up and go, oh, I might just start counseling. No, it's not. That's not how it goes. Well, that may occasionally, but it's so rare I don't remember any of those. But people come in because they've hit a place that's stressful, and they're wanting to get some consultation on what are some strategies? How can I think about this in order to bring about some change? Usually there's, we're talking about stress. So we start with a simple stress log. And it's interesting that sometimes just keeping track of the stresses, and we tell folks, look, as you go through the day and you notice that your level of stress increases because of a trigger, then write down on a piece of paper what the trigger was, whatever the emotion might have been that you were experiencing as in response to the trigger, and then what were your thoughts? Now, there are things you can do to enhance it, but that's the basic strategy for keeping a stress log. Sometimes when people just write things down, they reflect on what was going on and they feel better. just looking at it, recognizing it, and of course, what we do is we're interested in the content of the stress log.
And stopping and thinking about what to do about it is important too, because what happens in our lives is we feel something, we think something, it's really not very upfront in our conscious awareness, and then we we do something, and it becomes, and that's when we're getting in the habits of thinking and doing things. When you write it down, you stop and think about, is that a good idea? Do I
Yes.
need to do this? Is this helpful? And we've talked about it in past videos, that when we feel an uncomfortable feeling, the inclination is defend, protect, and sometimes that defensive, protective response is not helpful, because it's just based on the amygdala that's recognizing a threat that may not be a threat. It may be just an annoyance or something like that. It's not a car coming, so we don't have to protect ourselves. So so it gives us a chance to say, do I need to do that? Is that a real threat? Is that a good thought? Does that thought help me? Does that behavior help me to do that? Can I handle this thing that's coming up? Whether if it's a test or something like that, somebody's worried about not doing well on a test, and they go with that worry, and they stop and think about it. It gives them a chance to say, well, I have studied, I know the material, accessing the rational side of the brain is important when you're feeling a feeling that's moving you towards a defensive reaction that may not help.
Right. And by keeping a stress log and doing this reflection that you're talking about, and of course we have a variety of ways to help people think about their thinking, and to think about their behavior, and what can I change in my thinking or behavior to lead to a different outcome. The mere practice of doing that can be at the beginning of what we sometimes refer to as stress inoculation. So if I've come up with a different way of thinking and doing, then the next time the stressor comes up, ideally, the next time the stressor comes up, then I might have mitigated some of the stress, because now I've got some alternative pathways that my brain essentially can go down, and I can have a different result. Now, it's not like a light switch, right? It takes some repetition typically, but even doing those initial exercises, keep a stress log, do some analysis, uh, with your experience, you're able to bring examples. You can suggest things, different ways of thinking. You can pull out of somebody's experience things that they found that were actually successful in the past that they might be able to apply now. So there's a lot of work around this, what has become the automated way of thinking and behaving in response to triggers. So now we have a better preparation.
Yeah, and that kind of goes into the stages of change that I like to talk about. You have pre-contemplative, when you're not even thinking about changing something, and that's when you're in this habit, then you're not really having a lot of consequences from it that are painful enough. So we keep doing some bad habit, and we're it's not my fault, it's your fault kind of thing. And then circumstances change things and says, oh, this is not working well. I'm not getting good grades, I'm getting in trouble with my spouse, those kinds of things. So those circumstances happen that make you go, okay, let me contemplate this and think about it. And that's usually the point when somebody comes to counseling, where there's some consequence that's not feeling good, I'm getting in trouble, bad relationships, things are happening that aren't outcomes that I don't want. So now I got to look at this thing. So most people come to counseling at that point. And it's like you said, it's not a light switch that says, oh, I know what to do now, I'll just do it. I'll just decide to do it. It's like knowing the plan, for the football game, and go, oh, another plan. Okay, I'm ready for the game. You got to go practice it and get it into your muscle memory and that kind of thing. We've used that example a lot. The next one is preparation, and that's really what we're talking about, is trial and error. Try this, see if it works. Try this, see if that works. that worked, that didn't work. I'm not going to do what didn't work, you know. And then when people try things that work, they're motivated to do them because they work, you know. And sometimes we get to a point where if we don't know if it works, somebody else is suggesting it, the counselor, my spouse is suggesting it, my parent is suggesting it. You know, you might be motivated to try something because of that, but it's not going to stick. It's not going to become number 4 stage of action until it works for me. Now I'm not doing it because anybody else told me to do it. I'm doing it because it works for me. And you can't get to that point without practice. See if this works, see if this doesn't work. And talking about it in a session and being motivated and thinking, I'm going to change that. Yeah, that's a good idea. It's just not enough, because we go right back to those old habits. You know, that's what we're used to do. It's what we've conditioned ourselves to do over and over again. And unless you stop and think and practice it, it's probably not gonna stick.
Yeah, so we're on the lookout, you know. So now I've got a new, to go back to a sports analogy, we got a play. You know, I have a play in mind, and the next time I see the opportunity, I read the situation. I'm going to engage this way of thinking and doing, and then observe what the outcome is. And when we find something, and this is one of the things you do with your clients, is when they find something that works, they obviously they begin to notice improvement, right? And you begin to capture that information, and right away. And this seems unusual to people, because when they think of counseling, they're not really they may not be familiar with how this process works, but you capture that information, what works, and you make a record. You write it down, and we call it a relapse prevention plan. But you know, what has improved, and what do I attribute the improvement to? What did I do? I want to keep doing those things. Um, and as we begin to capture that information, then people are really beginning to integrate new patterns of behavior that are more functional.
So with the stress log, you have an awareness. You have, okay, I'm starting to stop and think. Get out of that automated, you know, process that we kind of get into. Is, you know, being able to interrupt that, think about things, make some changes. You have this awareness, and so now what the benefit, one of the benefits of that is to be able to look back on it and go, okay, there's a theme here. There's a trigger that keeps coming up. There's an event or a thought that's consistent with me having stress and maybe responding in a way that's not helpful. And so at that point, we want to take a look at the pattern of thinking. What's this thought that keeps coming up, that's leading me to that's connected to these triggers and these feelings? So that's where we get into the GOFAR strategy, which is stands for goals, others, feelings, alive, and reality. This thought help me reach my goal, get along with other people, feel like I want, keep me alive, and is it based in reality? So that tell a quick story about that because it wasn't always GOFAR.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay. You know, acronyms are helpful. If we come up with a good acronym, then and part of what we're trying to do is help people take what they got out of therapy and go apply it out in the world. And sometimes under stressful conditions, we don't remember what we were going to do, you know. So it's useful if we can have an acronym to help us remember. So the acronym was AFROG. So it started with alive, right? And so it was a frog. you know. so I'm sharing this way of evaluating thinking that's really based in research on rational thinking. So it's got a long history. It's part of the development of cognitive behavior therapy. But these questions help us to begin to think about our thinking. And there are many other tools. This is a pretty useful one, and so I called it a frog. And I had a young person in my office one time, and I'm going through this acronym with him, and he said, "You know, Dr. Barnhart, that might be better if you made it GOFAR." I said, "You're right. that would be a lot better than a frog." I said, I'll have to remember how to give you credit for this, in the future. But so that's how GOFAR developed from a frog. So it's obviously evolutionary.
Okay, so you're going through the process of you find these
Mm.
consistent thoughts that are coming up. Okay, so how
Mhm.
would you use the GOFAR test?
Well, at the end of the day, what we ask people to do is to use those 5 questions to look at the stresses, because one of the things we can do, if we're going to change a situation, we really have to work on ourselves, right? And so we're looking at, how am I thinking about this? At the end of the day, you pull out your stress log and you work your way through the questions. Right? You look at the thoughts that you had in response to the trigger, and you ask, well, does my thinking help me reach my goal? Well, that's very functional. And that's one of the things I like about having the G first, is that it's functional. And so, does my thinking help me get to my goal? In order to answer that question, you have to know what your goal is. So if my spouse criticized me for forgetting to take the garbage out to the curb, and I felt stressed about that, and I thought, oh, wow, why is she always on my back about taking the garbage to the curb? Then I would look at that and try to answer the question: does that thinking help me reach my goal? Well, what is my goal? I think from my standpoint, it would be to have a better relationship with my spouse, or it could be to remember to take the garbage out without being reminded. I mean, you could go down a number of directions, but right away, I'm confronting, is my thinking helping me get to my goal? And if my thinking is, why does she keep, reminding me about blah, blah, blah? Why is she upset about that? If my thinking is that, there's nothing in there that's goal directed.
Mhm.
It's just upsetting thinking. So it has no real value in helping me move toward whatever it is I'm interested in.
So that's 0 for 1. That's a no.
Yes, that's a no. Well, okay. And so our rule is, if you get one no, your thinking is probably irrational. Not
It's not
crazy,
helpful. It's
not
not
crazy.
helpful.
Yeah, just
It's
not
not
helpful.
helpful.
It's irrational. Yeah. So that's the kind. And then we move on to the next questions, does my thinking help me get along with others? Well, if I'm upset with my wife, there's nothing in that thinking that helps me move in the direction of getting along with my spouse.
0 for 2.
0 for 2.
Not
Next.
not doing well.
Exactly. Yeah, I could start revising right away, but we want to go through the other questions. So the third question is, does my thinking keep me feeling the way I would like to feel? The answer would be
0
no.
for 3.
I'm 0 for 3. I've struck out already. The fourth one is a little special. The fourth question is, does my thinking keep me alive? And fundamentally, that's about, am I having thoughts of killing myself or doing something that would be life-threatening? And we think that it's better, mental health wise, to understand that if I can stay around longer, probability is things can actually get better. And we find that over and over again. There are usually solutions that we can find if we get some help.
So, and in this case, it's neutral. It's not going to kill you.
It's neutral. It's not going either direction. All
Unless
right.
it's life-threatening, that's going to be a neutral.
It's going to be neutral, right? So the fifth question is my thinking in line with objective reality? Now, people, when I talk about that one, people often say, well, what is objective reality? And my answer to that is, well, if two of us were observing whatever it is that we're thinking about here, and we agree that it is observable, it's reality, then it's objective reality. But if I'm having a question in my head, like, why is she always nagging me about doing whatever? That question actually elicits negative, imaginative thinking. When I ask myself a question, my brain starts looking for an answer.
For the answer, that's right.
Yeah.
And we talked about that before, is that when we don't have the information, our brain automatically fills the pieces up. That's what anxiety does. It's like, oh, this could be bad. It is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not necessarily true. So,
and imagination is really often goes in one of two directions. It goes to the past, where I'm remembering things. Well, she's always griping about, so I'm going into the past, doing time travel, but it's not reality. Did it happen? Well, it may be what I'm thinking did actually occur. So in that sense, it happened, but it's not happening now. And my brain is responding as if it's occurring now. My emotion is actually reflecting what I'm imagining. The same thing happens if I go into the future. We typically think past is more depressive and the future is more anxiety provoking. Oh, how's this going to turn out? Oh, maybe she'll never stop being on my back, so imagination is not objective reality. So I'm
0 for 4.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So what do
If
I
I'm
do?
0 for 4 as a hitter, I better change something about the way I'm approaching
I think somebody's going to sit you on the
my
bench.
at bats. That's right. I'll be on the bench, but
Yeah.
we don't want to sit on the bench. We can't sit our clients on the bench.
Right.
We gotta play the game, right?
Yeah. You got to sit
We're
out
in.
this.
We're
this
in the
month.
game. So
Yeah.
the strategy is sitting out, right? It's the thought. We got to get that on the bench. We got to get the thought on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to come up with, and that's kind of the next step. That is this next step is, how can I think about the same thing, same thing, in a way that meets the GOFAR test? So let's go through that. So what would be an alternative thought to why is she always on my back, or some kind of she's just a nag, that's another one that might be happen. She's putting someone in a category, and with the, so how can we think about those thoughts in ways that are helpful?
What I like to do, Paul, and we could start with any one of the letters in the acronym, but I like to start with the last one. So I'll typically go there first and say, okay, well, is my thinking in line with reality? And the answer is no. It's causing me to imagine things. Well, how would I?
Truth?
Yeah, what's true? What?
I did forget. I
Oh,
forgot.
you mean you mean I have to be honest?
I
Oh,
forgot.
I guess if I'm going to
And
be in line with reality, I have to be honest.
she's asked me before, and I forgot. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
she's allowed to have feelings about my irresponsibility.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Or if I'm not irresponsible, my difficulty in keeping in my working memory that every Monday I need to get the garbage out to the curb.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. So 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 bring up reality. What is reality? Well, the reality is she reminded me of something that I forgot to do. That's true. Okay, well, how can I think about that? Well, I've agreed that's one of the things, that's one of the chores that I do to help keep the house running. And so that would also be true.
I didn't like how she confronted me.
Yeah, it could be that.
I mean, that's an honest statement about how
Mhm,
you feel about
mhm,
how she did it. And it's
mhm.
about there's nothing that can help you meet your goal of getting along better, because it might lead you to communicating that. She is right about that. I
Yeah,
didn't remember.
she
I
is
didn't
right.
like the tone of
Right.
voice that she had. Um, and that's better than she just yells at me all the time, or she just nags me all the time, or she is a nag. She's
Mhm.
when another one would be, she's a human being that's flawed, and she's not going to give the perfect response every time, and
Right.
that's okay for me to. I don't need to expect that.
Are you saying we can be fallible human
We
beings?
can be fallible human beings.
Oh my.
That's you've used this before with the driver, that cuts you off. It's just he's an idiot,
He's an
right?
idiot.
He's
Yes,
an idiot. Well, he's a flawed human being that made a
exactly.
really bad driving mistake. We don't know everything about him. He might be a great person.
We don't.
He
Yeah.
might just not have seen you and made a mistake. And can we go through our history of driving and say that we've
Yeah.
always been perfect at that? Probably not.
That's probably true.
So
Yeah, he's probably on his way to feed homeless people,
that's right. Yeah, he's an idiot, right? He's a
Yeah,
jerk
and
and an idiot.
yeah, and I need
And
to be
turns
more.
out he's yeah, he's a
He's
great
off on a
person.
good deed.
He
Yeah,
just made a mistake.
and
But that's what we do. We
exactly.
go right to that
Yeah.
person's bad.
Mm-hmm.
That person is bad, or put some kind of category on it.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't It's not based in reality. Okay? With that
Right.
first one, doesn't
Right.
help you meet your goal either. Doesn't help you get along with her. Doesn't make you feel good either, right?
No. Right.
Okay, I'm acknowledging I did something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I got to own that. I didn't like the way she did it. You don't. This is
Mm-hmm.
not about being just surrendering everything.
Right.
This is not about. Uh, you can be honest and have thoughts that
Mm-hmm.
that aren't. It's not about making nice. It's not about just giving in,
Yeah.
anything like that. It's about helpful.
That's
It's
not
about what's
magic.
helpful. It's about what is helpful to move
Mm-hmm.
my goals forward
Mm-hmm.
that meet those criteria. That helps what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not necessarily, well, I just have to accept it every time my spouse,
Mm-hmm.
says something to me a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what we're saying.
Right.
Uh,
And one of the things that you do in counseling is to, when you get in touch with objective reality and you're thinking about, well, what would get me in, if my goal is to have a better relationship with my spouse, then I could think of many different approaches I could take. One approach, it would be to say, well, the first thing to do is maybe to own the fact that I didn't take care of my responsibility.
yeah.
And what can I do to change that? And that might be a place to start, is
Yeah.
to acknowledge, you're right. I forgot again, And so what I'm going to do in the future is oh, I have a phone that does reminders. Huh, who who would have thought of that? Well, okay, so I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to just put it right in there so that every Monday morning I know
Yeah.
that before I get in that car and take off
And
down the
that's a thought that leads to a behavior that's helpful.
yes.
And in the same way, let's take, that's the task part of
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
So the relationship part of it, the task is part of the relationship because you're doing what
Hmm.
said you're going to do. But the relationship part, the communication part of it is, I didn't like the way she said it,
Yes.
and
And we
so
don't have to do both of those at the same
we don't
time.
have to do it at the same time. But
Yes.
but as another one,
Yes.
just as another example,
We should do it. Yeah,
is
I'm with
is
you.
okay. I can tell her that. I can tell
Hmm.
her. I would really like it if you you would speak calmly to me and not raise your voice, and
Hmm.
not be critical of me. We
Hmm.
use critical language. We've talked about that. Use
Hmm.
the complaint method versus critical.
Hmm.
um, I can express my feelings about how
Hmm.
you said that, um, and that's going to help me respond to you better. That's going to help me, and also I can ask for her assistance. I can
Mm.
say, hey, is there a way that you can help me come up with a strategy to remember better? And then we're
Sure.
working on it together.
Sure.
So you're
Sure.
taking something that's frustrating and taking it to problem solving
Hmm.
as a team, rather than she's always nagging me, he's always forgetful, he doesn't care about me
Hmm.
because he
Hmm.
forgets. Neither those aren't helpful, and they're not true. They don't meet any part of the GOFAR
I
criteria.
like what you're saying here because what it does is recognize that this is a process of learning and remembering, um, and we're in it together. So um, I think it's a very functional strategy, an important one to have a conversation about. Well, it hurt my feelings the way you said it. Your tone of voice, bothered me. Is there so you can address that. That's called assertiveness, by the way. That's, talk about how you think and about what you feel.
Yeah,
And
just
this is,
honesty, and this is how it is, not to hurt.
right.
And so it's not aggressive, it's not passive, it's,
Hmm.
hey, this is just how I'm feeling and thinking right now.
Hmm. So that's how we use a GOFAR analysis.
And
And it,
as the process of it was going to lead, typically is going to lead to some, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
yeah.
It makes really good sense. It doesn't really
Hmm.
take long to kind of go through the process.
Hmm.
And then it's a matter of practice,
Practice.
because it's not enough to be aware. It's not enough to make a decision. It's implementing that decision, and
Hmm.
and and getting out of that habit. It's just like really anything else that we get into a habit of doing. We don't think about it. We do it. We do it. We think it. We do it.
Hmm.
Um, the process typically is, I'm making less mistakes. I'm realizing it
Hmm. Hmm.
faster. Oh, I realized I just did that a few minutes later, and then
Hmm.
I'm realizing it like right after, and then I'm realizing it while I'm doing it, and then I realize it before I'm doing it, and then I'm in a better habit of, this trigger, this thing happens, this is how I think, this is how I do it,
Hmm.
more instinctively, because we're trying to build instincts by
Right.
practice.
Right. And learning to do that type of analysis really begins to integrate more into our ongoing thinking and behavior. So it becomes a tool that we're using more automatically.
Right. And
Well,
that's the basis of emotional intelligence, being able
exactly.
to
Yeah.
understand how we're feeling,
Hmm.
what we're thinking, and using it to help us
Hmm.
live better, feel
I, li-
better.
I like it, Paul. I think you've inspired me. I'm gonna go work on my garbage, taking the garbage out to the curb on a regular basis.
Good for you. I'm pretty good at that. I get upset if I don't remember. I'm kind of in a good habit. I have a hard time with the recycle bin because sometimes it only comes once a month.
Once a month. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a little harder.
We need a little more practice with that one, probably.
Yeah. All right. Well, very good. Well, that's a good example of the stress log and the GOFAR and the importance of homework and practice. And so thanks everybody for watching, and I hope everybody has a happy holiday season. And we're gonna kiss 2020 goodbye pretty soon.
Yay.
And so hopefully we got better things ahead for 2021.
I'm with you.
All right, everybody have a good one.